The 2016–2018 Ducati Hypermotard 939. Ducati updated its Hypermotard for the 2016 model year and carried that forward to 2018. Fairly fresh off a revamp in 13, the new Hypermotard variant brings Ducati's Euro 4 emissions-compliant Testastretta to the range along with its increased 937cc displacement and 113 pony output. The factory also padded the range with a MotoGP-liveried 939 SP that sports top-shelf racing suspension and is generally skewed toward track work, or riders who wish they were doing track work. Both rides benefit from Ducati's rider safety technology with onboard traction control, ABS and the like. Good thing too, since this is exactly the kind of bike that will allow you to get in trouble all three ways: quick, fast, and in a hurry. Continue reading for my review of the Ducati Hypermotard 939 and 939 SP. Design. A jockey-style rider's triangle puts the rider in position to throw around some serious body English for racing and trick riding. I realize I'm probably in the minority, but I never have liked the bird's beak fairings and this newest duck is no exception. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and what it is necessary because the front fender is cut down to a minimum in back, and cut away entirely up front, leaving nothing to control the up and forward fling from the front wheel. The headlight housing grows out the top of the beak with a form that flows right into the tiny flyscreen. Handguards provide protection for the rider's hands and control levers in the event of a laydown and provide a handy and clean location to mount the front turn signals. Moving aft, the flyline plays across the gentle swell of the fuel tank, bumped down to a shallow scoop rider's seat and slightly offset pillion pad over the ascending subframe. Duck finishes the 939 with the typical hangy-downy mudguard, plate holder, turn signal assembly that I loathe, and a hugger to complete the rear wheel coverage. A jockey-style rider's triangle puts the rider in position to throw around some serious body English for racing and trick riding. This is, without a doubt, a purpose-driven machine, and it shows. The exposed frame, sparse body panels and cut-down fenders all speak to the weight-saving efforts made by the engineers to turn this into more of a tool for the road, track than something to be used as curb dressing. That's what buses are for. Chassis. While the base model carries a beefy set of 43mm USD forks with fixed performance values, its race-tastic sibling rocks a set of inverted 50mm forks with the full spectrum of adjustments. The factory started out with trellis frame made up of 34 diameter, welded steel members for the foundation of the rolling chassis with a die-cast subframe and technopolymer midsection. Handling is made sharp by virtue of the 25.5-degree rake, 4.1-inch trail and 58.8-inch 59-inch on the SP wheelbase. Curb weight comes in at 450 pounds, 442-pound SP, so the Hypermotard is definitely a bit overbraked with a pair of 320mm discs up front and 4 pod anchors to bind them. The rear end sports a 245mm disc and dual-pot caliper with a Bosch ABS along to protect you from yourself, not if, but when you grab too big of a fistful. Speaking of fists, the brake lever comes with a 4-position adjustment, 5 on the SP, on the axial hand pump, so whether you've got dainty little claws or big ol' hamburger shovels, Ducati has you covered. You may have noticed that so far, there are a few little differences between the base model and the SP variant, but now we are going to get into some less subtle distinctions. While the base model carries a beefy set of 43mm USD forks with fixed performance values, its race-tastic sibling rocks a set of inverted 50mm forks with the full spectrum of adjustments so you can dial in for race day. Out back, a Sachs monoshock brings adjustable preload and rebound to the base 939, but again, the SP brings the top-shelf swag with an Öhlins monoshock and full-spectrum adjustability. The hoops see some difference as well. Not in size, both run 17 inches front and rear, but where the base 939 rolls on 10-spoke alloy wheels and Pirelli's Diablo Rosso 2 tires, the SP runs 3-spoke, forged Marcassini rims and Diablo Super Corsa SP rubber. Drivetrain. Ducati's Desmodromic valvetrain uses pull-open, pull-closed cams instead of a cam and spring arrangement to eliminate the valve float you can get at high RPM with return spring systems. As expected, the new engine is a mechanical and electronic marvel. Let's start with the hard parts, shall we? The Testastretta 11 degrees gets its name from the 11 degrees of valve overlap that occurs on the exhaust stroke. This short overlap duration strikes a balance between exhaust gas scavenging and the release of free hydrocarbons, and helps the mill meet stringent Euro 4 emission standards. The four valve heads open up the combustion chamber through the genius that is Ducati's desmodromic valve train that uses pull-open, pull-closed cams instead of a cam and spring arrangement. Yeah, this makes for extra maintenance, but the system also eliminates the valve float you can get at high RPM with return spring systems. A 94 mm bore and short, 67.5 mm stroke adds up to a total displacement of 937 cc, up from 821 cc with the previous gen. Waste heat from the sizzling hot 13.1:1 compression ratio is handled by the engine coolant jacket and radiator, plus an oil cooler for extra thermal protection. Magneti Marelli provides the throttle bodies, and this is where we cross into the electronic wizardry. A ride-by-wire throttle control manages induction and enables the variable throttle response that comes bundled with Ducati's riding modes feature. The riding modes allow the pilot to quickly switch between preset combinations of power delivery, ABS, rear-end lift mitigation, and traction control intervention. Each model comes with its own values plugged into each of the three settings, with the SP understandably running the more race-tastic profiles of the two. Both models produce the 113 horsepower max in two of the presets with a 75 pony limiter attached to the urban, wet profiles. Regardless of setting, the full 72.2 pound-feet of torque comes on at 7,500 revolutions per minute. A slipper clutch provides yet another layer of traction insurance, and a 6-speed gearbox crunches the ratios before sending power to the rear wheel via chain drive. Pricing. For 2018, Ducati adds Star White Silk to the 939 palette. The base model Hypermotard 939 rolls for $12,995 while the upgraded SP version commands a $15,995 MSRP. Ducati added a new color to the 939 palette for 2018 in the form of Star White Silk available along with the Ducati Red. The 939 SP is available in the red course stripe livery. Competitor. Looks-wise, the two look almost as though they were popped from the same mold, unsurprising given the rather niche purposes for these sleds. While there's a double fistful of bikes on the market with similar looks and purposes, nothing compares with the Ducati ride quite like the Dorsoduro 900 by its domestic foe, Aprilia. Looks-wise, the two look almost as though they were popped from the same mold, unsurprising given the rather niche purposes for these sleds. Birds' beaks abound with chopped-back front fenders, fly screens and handguards for protection. A gentle fuel tank hump gives way to bench-like seat and narrow waist, but the Ducati saddle comes with a shoulder that will interfere with efforts to slide back for the trickier stuff. The good news there is that only stunt riders will have a problem with it, and all others will be glad for the extra butt retention capabilities. Aprilia gets a leg up in the chassis with adjustable front forks against the straight vanilla stems on the Duc, but both enjoy a bit more adjustability out back. Brakes and ABS protection are likewise close enough for government work with little to choose between the two. Aprilia leaves a few cubes on the table with an 896cc displacement up against the 937cc Duc mill, and it also surrenders some power, too, with only 93 horsepower and 66 pounds-o grunt versus 110 70-seconds from the Duc. Electronic gadgetry is eerily similar, and this is the area where the Italians really pull apart from most of the rest of the world and make it hard to find a non-ITI competitor. Ducati takes a beating at the checkout though. Aprilia lets loose of the Dorsoduro 900 for $10,999, a couple grand less than the Hypermotard, and that's liable to grab some buyers that may have been tempted to join the ranks of the Ducatisti. He said. These are some funny-looking bikes, but form follows function and the Hypermotard seems to have that in spades. Really, the electronics suite gives this bike features and options that make it suitable for a wide range of activities including just plain riding, and should not be discounted by folks who are looking for a street ride but aren't necessarily into stunts and racing. She said. My wife and fellow motorcycle rider, Alan Hinton, says this kinda brings the hooligan-ness of the old 1100, don't you think? It's tall with a very upright seating position, so you feel like you're on top of the world. It's surprisingly comfortable. No, I don't mean touring comfortable, but looking at that seat, I thought it would be worse than it is. It's a little pricey, but for a purpose-built machine, I don't consider it out of reach. Specifications. References. See our review of the Aprilia Dorsoduro 900.
If you liked this video, please share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit the subscribe button.